On today's episode, we have Faris Khalifeh, the go-to expert on quiet leadership. You're not going to want to miss it.
Tune in to learn the main differences between introverts and extroverts and why self-awareness and energy management are crucial skills to have as you begin your career. Your success is our success, so let's get started.
From the heart of Silicon Valley in beautiful San Francisco, California, welcome to the SDR Live podcast with Marcos and Andy.
Awesome. Well, glad to be back on another episode of the SDR Live. Today we have the man himself, Faris Khalifeh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Wow. Yeah, such a pleasure.
Awesome. I mean, Andy and I are super pumped because you were actually our teacher when we were at SV Academy. And man, it was just like learning from you is probably, one of the best experiences that I've ever been through. What about you, Andy?
It's great. Like I can express how excited I am today just because Faris was our instructor, friend, teacher who really guided us as little chicks, and now we're having our own podcast and being successful as an SDR. So
you did all the work, but thank you for the kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so today is going to be all about quiet leadership in sales. But before we start, we'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. I know you have some awesome things brewing, Faris, if you could start with that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So I call myself a quiet leadership coach. So what that means, I coach introverts to embrace who they are and leverage their natural strength and traits. I've been doing that officially for 6 years now. Before that, I used to be in the corporate world, mainly in marketing and advertising for almost 15 years. And then at some point in my career, I was unfulfilled. And I know it sounds a bit cliche. So I thought, all right, let me explore why I am not fulfilled. So I took some time off to explore and examine what's happening. And during that self-exploration phase, I realized that I want to be a coach. And it all happened. It was a big aha moment for me. I was sitting in my living room and I looked at my bookcase, and I had around maybe 1,000 books. And all the books were on self-development, self-growth, and coaching. Since I was a teenager, I knew I was passionate about this topic, but I never thought of pursuing it as a career. But that moment, it hit me, all right, let's switch gears and switch careers, and I want to become a coach. So I quit my job, went to college to study coaching and counseling. I did both. It was 1 year intensive program. After I finished the program and got certified as a coach and a counselor, I started my coaching practice. And my focus on introverts is because I realized a big factor of my unfulfillment was because I didn't know myself. And I didn't know what's my personality type. I didn't know what an introvert is or an extrovert. So I was operating, now when I reflect back what happened, I was in a very extroverted environment and probably culture, society, etc. We'll talk about that later. And I was operating as an extrovert, although I am an introvert. I didn't have the tools, I didn't have the knowledge, what I need to do, how to take care of my energy, my traits, etc. So that led to burnout and unfulfillment. So I thought, all right, let me focus my coaching on that and help other introverts understand themselves, embrace who they are, capitalize on their strength, and also do like corporate training and workshops to teams in companies. So the extroverts understand introverts and introverts understand extroverts, both actually, because I see a lot of misunderstanding between both personality types. So that's where I work with managers to close that communication gap between teams. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. That's so awesome. I mean, I'm just super excited to learn from you on how you're, meshing the two between an introvert and extrovert. Like you, very similar. When I was in college, I had no clue what introvert or extrovert was. And someone kept asking me, are you introvert? Are you extrovert? And I'm just like, what does that even mean? And so I guess we're going to be able to really get a good background from you. And I mean, 1,000 books. That's a lot, but I'm sure a lot of learnings too.
It's a big bookshelf.
By the way, I gave them all away, but I'll leave that for a different day, another story.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. If you want to start sharing your screen and we can get into the meat and potatoes, that'd be awesome.
All right, let's do it. All right, let's get into it. So why introverts are great at sales? Let's find out. So before I get into that, I want to share with you roughly what we will be covering today. I'll talk a bit about what is an introvert, define that, because as you said, Marcus, there's a lot of misunderstanding and misconception. The second piece, I want to talk about some myths. There's so many. I'll share with you today the top two. Then get into the meat of the discussion, which is why introverts are great at sales. And then at the end, I'll share with you a few resources that I think they're great to have. Here's a disclaimer. I wanted to I put that here so I don't forget. I wanted to say that the focus of this presentation is on introverts, because that's what the session is about, why introverts are great at sales. But that doesn't mean extroverts are not great at sales too. And the second thing I wanted to mention about that, I'm going to focus a lot on introverts, but that doesn't mean I have bias against extroverts. Of course not. Both personality types are great. It's just simply they're different. And each personality has its own strength and weaknesses. So just I wanted to put that out there. The second thing I wanted to mention, most of the stuff I'm going to share with you are common traits for introverts, but that doesn't mean it's black or white. So it doesn't mean an introvert, they come with these set of traits, no question asked. Of course not. It's not that black or white. We're humans, we're complex. So I'm going to share commonly what are the traits. And of course, there will be exceptions because there's so many factors that influence the person. How does that sound?
That sounds amazing. I love that you shared that, because for me, as a self-identified, maybe ambivert that leans more towards extroversion, I would say, like, I'm excited to learn today because like as a team lead and even as a seller, as an SDR, when I joined the team, I just expected to be around very like-minded people who are high energy most of the time and come and walk into the room and just bring that energy. But it wasn't like that at all. And like, this will allow me to really understand my colleagues better, be a better person, be a better worker, etc. So let's get right to it.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. All right. These are instrumental books in my learning. So I've been studying introverts for 6 years officially. And of course, I did so many research, focus groups, working with clients from different parts of the world. But these four, I love them. These are my favorite books. I met all these authors. They're awesome. They're supportive of what I do. And so yeah, I wanted to bring that up because for sure, I'm going to reference them. All right. So what is an introvert? In a nutshell, introvert is a term defined by Carl Jung, the psychologist, but it's more than this. But the gist of it, or the core of what it means to be an introvert is a person that gains energy when they're alone, so they're away from stimulation, anything that stimulates the five senses, and they lose energy when they're in stimulating environments. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we're wired as introverts. We need the solitude in order to recharge. Extroverts are the opposite. They recharge when they're around stimulation. They love action and activities. It really gives them that motivation. So this is the key difference in a very simplistic form. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's a spectrum. So it's not either or. Like you both mentioned, you resonate maybe more with an ambivert, which is someone in the middle. So you have both maybe traits. You can tap into both energies. The more introverted you are, the more time you need by yourself. And the more extroverted, the more you want that energy and to be stimulated. So yeah, so it depends where you fall on the spectrum. So it varies.
I have a question off of that. So, and you might show this as we go along, but is there any statistic out there that shows what the general population is? Are they more extroverted? Are they more introverted? Or is it tend to be a 50-50?
Great question. And I'm going to leave it for the next slide because I'm going to cover that. And I want you to guess.
Okay.
But great question. That comes up a lot.
Awesome.
All right. So before we get there, how about we play a quick game?
Yes.
All
Always
right. So
down
if you
for
have
games.
a piece of paper in front of you, a
Okay.
notepad, a pen, I would love to invite you to sign your name on that piece of paper, just
Yeah,
the way you sign it on a checkbook.
I'm gonna do it in a marker so the audience can see it.
This
You
is
don't have
mine.
to show it to me.
Oh.
All right. So my next question is now sign your name with the other hand.
Oh gosh. Okay. On the same piece of paper.
Yep. You want to
Okay.
save trees.
All right. I think it would be. Yeah, that's true. Oh my gosh.
I will definitely not show this part.
All right. So my question to you now is, how did it feel the first time when you signed your name?
Like my initial impression, it just feels like it's the norm, right? I'm just so used to doing it that it's I don't think about it consciously, and then well, that's the first part.
Cool. So it came naturally to you. You didn't think about it. Easy. Andy?
Same, organic. I didn't even think about it. It just flowed well, and something I need to do more often.
Awesome. And how did it feel the second time with the other hand?
Yeah, for me, I felt like was not in control. I don't know if that's pretty common, but also at the same point, like I was thinking a lot, trying to like do an M right for Marcos or do an A right. So I was thinking about it.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Andy?
Yeah, for me, I almost felt embarrassed that it looked so bad, and it took way too much thought and guilt in just writing my name.
And guilt. Oh my God. All right. Thank you guys for participating in this exercise. So the purpose of this exercise, I wanted to use that analogy and say it's similar to the like being right-handed or left-handed is a similar idea to being an introvert and extrovert. When you signed your name with your dominant hand, it's felt natural, authentic, organic, doesn't require thought. It's just natural to you and easy. And the second time, it felt awkward, uneasy. You had to think about it, all that other stuff. So if you're an introvert, you're trying to be an extrovert, you would feel the same way. It's uneasy, hard or harder. And if you're just being yourself, it's easy, organic, natural, etc. So the idea here, like if you say, I want to start using my other hand, like if you're right-handed and you say, I want to start using my left hand, it's as if you're saying there's something wrong with my right hand. You never question that. There's nothing wrong with being right-handed. And there's nothing wrong with being an introvert or an extrovert, simply different. And like I said before, it comes with strengths and weaknesses. However, I understand in some cases you need to tap into that energy or go there. Same with the hands. Sometimes you use the other hand. However, the trick here is to be conscious of that shift. And so as an introvert, you tap into that energy, which is stimulating. It might drain your energy. It might be uneasy. But if you're conscious about it, you do it with the plan or you're mindful about it, and then shift back to your original state. And when you shift back, you do the stuff that you need to get re-energized. So if you have, let's say in my case, as an introvert, when I speak on stage or do other stuff that has stimulation, my energy gets depleted faster, of course. But I'm doing it consciously, and then once I finish that, whatever I need to do, then I give myself the time to be in solitude, take care of myself, maybe before and after. Which to energize myself. So as long as you do it with cautious and mindfulness, that's great.
I was
Questions,
curious.
thoughts?
You might cover this coming up, but are people born introverted or extroverted, or is that something that is because like in sales they always say everyone says, oh, you have to be extroverted to get into sales, but from what I've learned through books is that not necessarily, right? Actually, a lot of introverts are CEOs that are absolutely crushing it, but they've learned that over time. So I was just curious if you're born into introvert or extrovert.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. There's many studies, and there's one I'm going to share in a few slides. you are born either an introvert or an extrovert. And in the biology, the way the brain is wired and the way we process information and the neural pathways, they're different than extroverts. However, there's nature and nurture. So you can be born an introvert, but if society and culture and your surrounding and you as well, trying so hard to be an extrovert and letting that influence you, it's possible to shift. But originally you were born, either this or that. And my thought on this is not try to change, just embrace who you are. But it's possible. But you are born either this or that. All right, shall we go to the next slide? Oh, that's the slide. Good question, Marcus. So it's a nervous system setting. So as you can see from this diagram, I don't want to go deep into it, but there's a different pathways, and the way we receive and process stimulation is different. And that's from the book, The Introvert Advantage. Let's move to the next one.
Wow.
I love this analogy. I use it a lot. It helped me, and it helped many of my clients to think of their battery, think of their energy as a battery. And the more you get exposed to stimulation, the energy goes down and down, and that's normal. I guess that's normal for everyone. Like even extroverts, of course, your energy at some point is going to go down. But with introverts, is much faster, and we're more sensitive to that. So the idea here is to be conscious of that battery and optimize it. So how can you do it? I'll give you a quick example to illustrate this point. So let's say you're an introvert. If you book back-to-back meetings, the first meeting you go in, you're green, you're productive, sharp, awake, all that stuff, creative. And then you go to the next meeting, you're probably in the yellow piece, which is a bit depleted. So imagine then you go to the third meeting, then you're really depleted. So in that meeting, probably you don't say much, you're not contributing, you're not as efficient, as productive, as creative. So that's not a good scenario. So if you optimize that energy, you're always at a good level. So how do you optimize the energy? It's different from one person to another. What I would suggest, monitor your energy and see where do you gain energy, where do you lose energy, and then have a mix of those. So for example, I personally, I would not have back-to-back meetings. I'll have 15 minutes buffer break. In those 15 minutes, sit in a quiet place. Maybe if it's not a quiet place, use my noise canceling headphones. Then I'm energized. Then I go to the next meeting again, productive and energetic. So I will play around with it. So now on my calendar, actually, it's blocked. Like one client session buffer, one client session buffer. So that gives me the time to recharge. And there's different ways to recharging aside from sitting in solitude. I find meditation helps. So if you're into meditation, that helps. Journaling helps. Maybe walking around the block and coming back up to the office helps. So you can think of different ways and see what works for you. So play around with it.
So I have a question here, and you mentioned this idea of where do you gain your energy? And a lot of this has to deal with, I would think, self-awareness in yourself. But say, for example, our audience, they're just starting their career, and they're not sure how they gain energy. So what would you say is a good way for them to go about this, to find that energy?
Honestly, the best way is to monitor. So maybe because the person, let's say, listening to this, never thought about it, so they didn't pay the attention to it. When you, like for example, buy a red card and you start seeing it everywhere, same idea. Now you're conscious of it. If you consciously and mindfully start monitoring, all right, how am I feeling now? Let's say after 2 meetings, or I don't know, let's make it relevant to sales, of course. Let's say after 1 hour of back-to-back calls. See how do you feel. If your energy is a bit low, doesn't hurt to go take a 10-minute break and then come back to doing the cold calls. So something around that. And if you're an introvert, most probably solitude or away from stimulation would energize you. But that's something, like you said, it goes to self-awareness and self-monitoring and understanding. But generally speaking, staying away, getting away from stimulation energizes introverts.
Okay. No, that's great. And I just want to say something here, because when I started my career early on, I didn't know how I gained my energy. And this is like a plug-in for a book, but I read a book called The Untethered Soul. And it really helped me figure out like where I am in the world, right? What I wanted to do, but also like who I am as a person and what I like. And so I'm actually more introverted, even though you don't think. I'll probably turn it on for this podcast. But to hear like this whole battery analogy has been so refreshing, because I think I need to start incorporating having these like micro breaks after each meeting. Because if I'm in back to back, like after the day, I'm just completely wasted and I don't want to talk to anybody.
Mm. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, that's a beautiful book. And you recommended that book to me, actually. And it's now one of my favorites. So thank you. But like you said, micro breaks is a great idea.
My question was, like, as an extrovert, I'm curious because sometimes after meetings, I can, if I feel happy because the call went well, I'll have way more energy than before the meeting. But if it goes badly, then sometimes I'll actually feel down and not want to speak to anybody. I'm not sure if this is relevant, but does that mean that like when I'm sad, more of my introversion comes in, or this is just totally unrelated, more that if I'm sad, I probably will have less energy?
Yeah, I would say unrelated, and probably because you're sad, you have a low energy. So that could be applicable to both introverts and extroverts. And it's common. If you have a win, your energy is going to spike and you're going to feel better and more energized regardless. So that's a great point. But yeah, if you have didn't go well, that's okay. You just go, and you know that. We spoke about that before. You just keep going till you get the win.
Yes, I love it. The persistence is key.
It's a numbers games, all right? Game.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next slide. Speaking of energy, that's a great book about energy. It doesn't talk about introverts specifically, but the gist of the book is all summarized in the subtitle, which is managing energy, not time, is the key to high performance and personal renewal. So that's why energy is crucial. When you have the energy, you perform on a better level, and yeah, it gives you that personal renewal. So it's important to have the energy. So that's why I pay attention to the battery life. And in a nutshell, introversion is all about, it's not all about, but a big factor, it's about energy management, how you manage your energy. And saying you're an introvert or even an extrovert, it's not about putting a label on yourself or putting yourself in a box to restrict you. On the contrary, the way I see it is another piece of information. Like you said, Marcus, you're learning about yourself, you're having that awareness, so you can do something about it. So it's not about labels. And because, like you alluded as well, in my opinion, self-knowledge is the basis of personal empowerment. The more we learn about ourselves, the better we become, the more confident we become as well. So that's one part of the puzzle, piece of the puzzle, understanding yourself. I love the clapping. Thank you, Andy.
That's a quote that I need to put on my wall. Self-knowledge is the basis of personal empowerment. The more you know about yourself, the better you can either interact and just engage with other people. I was going to say, I love that you shared energy management. That's something that I've been constantly working on, especially as an SDR. You have a million things that you have to do per day. And a big part of me was focused more on time management before I even learned that energy management was a thing. And the idea that energy management is kind of leveraging when you have the most amount of energy to do kind of your most quality or most demanding tasks, such as cold calling or prospecting. And like now that I learn about energy management, I don't cold call or prospect right after lunch, because I know that I've identified that my energy is super low, so it's not as productive.
That's a fantastic example. So like you said, when we have energy, utilize that time. And like you said, so the things that require energy, like let's say cold calls, do them and get it over with, or just do them. And then when you need that break, maybe you don't have to take a break. Then you shift to another task, which is, let's say, prospecting through emails or doing research. So then that's how you also manage your energy differently. You do one task that requires energy that can deplete you, then you move to the other one that doesn't deplete you. And usually introverts, they're good at writing, because it gives them that space to reflect and articulate what they want to say. So that's a nice mix between cold calling and emails.
So I have a question here, and Andy, thanks for sharing that. It kind of sparked my brain. So if anyone like knows me at Optimize, I've been notoriously known for just cranking through everything and trying to go full blast 100%. But that actually led to burnout, I would say, like 6 months into my role. And I actually like didn't hit quota. I think I got like one opportunity the whole month. And so if you don't find your energy, right, like I'm sure that greater the chances of you leading to burnout. Is that the case?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened to me in the corporate world after 15 years of doing that, and not like being so driven, not taking breaks, etc., and not paying attention to my trade. I got burnt out, and that's the part when I said unfulfilled. It was burnt out as well. I couldn't even like go to work. So it could lead to that if you're not paying attention and not taking care of yourself. So self-care is crucial to keep you going. I'm gonna use like a dad analogy. It's like a car. You need to stop and fill it with gas. Same idea. If we keep going, at some point we're gonna crash. So that's a great point. Thank you, Marcus.
I love that. Thanks for sharing the car analogy. All these analogies, amazing.
All right, I'm glad you like them. All right, let's move to the next. Game time. We'll play a quick game. So what I'm gonna do, put on screen a famous person and guess if the person is an introvert or an extrovert. Are you ready, guys?
Let's do it.
All right, first one, Richard Branson.
Extrovert.
Extrovert.
All right, let's see. Introvert.
What?
0-0. All right, let's go to the next one. Steve Jobs.
Extrovert.
I could see him as an introvert.
Ambivert.
There's no ambiverts, either or. Extrovert.
What?
So what's interesting about this case, there's some case studies talk about one of the factors of Apple's success having an introverted and extroverted people on top, which is Steve Wozniak is an introvert and he was an extrovert. So that mix really makes a difference. And that's something usually I talk about. It's important to have both personality types on teams. That's how we complement each other. So, all right, Marcus is winning so far, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
0
Oprah.
0 for 2.
Extrovert.
Definitely extrovert.
Oh my gosh.
I'm leaving. I'm done.
How we and I are most alike? Let me guess. You're an introvert. I'm an introvert! I knew it. I knew it?
Just in case you didn't believe me. All right. Next. Brene Brown.
Ooh, great TED Talk.
Ooh.
I'm going to say extrovert.
Extrovert.
All right, let's see.
Oh
Introvert.
my gosh.
Listen to this. I love this part.
How many of you know that I'm super introverted? It's handy when I'm traveling because I'll be sitting next to someone and they'll say, so what do you do? And if I'm not in the mood to chat, I'll be like, I study shame. What do you do? They're just like,
Wow. Okay.
All right. Rosa Parks.
Introvert.
Nice.
All right, you're getting the hang of it. And imagine how powerful and what change she made, and just by being gentle and soft-spoken and introverted. So yeah, that proves the point. All right, I'll go quickly. Guy Kawasaki, introvert. What about Waldo?
Introvert.
That's a joke. He's always
Introvert.
Oh man, I love that.
But it's been hard for him to hide these days with social distancing. All right. So you got the gist. These are introverts too. So the idea here.
What? Michael Jordan is an introvert?
Yep.
Gandhi?
Dang, that's crazy.
So the point of this game is to demonstrate, we have that misconception. Immediately we think if a person is in the spotlight or someone is, a CEO or someone like Michael Jordan, automatically extrovert. And as you saw here, that's a misconception because you can't tell from the outside actually, because introversion is about, or extroversion is about the energy management and it's internal. It's where you gain and lose energy. So it has nothing to do with how you show up from the outside. But that's, I guess because of society, and I'll talk about that in a second, actually. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So why do we have this misconception and bias? We think introverts are the antisocial, they don't know how to talk, they're hiding in the basement. There's many reasons for that. I'll share with you a few. This is from Quiet, the book by Susan Cain. She says one factor is the childhood and upbringing. Usually parents, they encourage their kids to be like out there. They tell them if you want to be great, you need to be bold. If you want to be happy, you need to be sociable, have many friends. And usually, not usually, most parents get worried when their son or daughter like playing in the room by themselves or doing something that doesn't require friends. And if they have like 1 or 2 friends, they worry as well. Like, why don't you have 10 friends? So we have that thought that the more the better, and you need to be out there. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, that's important to be social and have friends, but there's less focus on the other stuff: solitude time, being in the room by themselves, doing something, maybe drawing, playing music, etc. So that's one factor. And then society doesn't help, because when you grow up, same thing you hear from people, and of course the media, usually they show the successful people are extroverted, loud, bold, dominant, etc. And they don't showcase the other successful people that are introvert, quiet, soft-spoken. And that doesn't mean extroverts are not successful. Of course they are. And there is also successful extroverts. But as you see in this screen, for example, extroverts are highlighted more. And the books as well. So that's another unconscious thing we start picking up between childhood, parents, media, books, TV shows, etc. Susan Cain calls this era the extrovert ideal, because the eras before that, before the 21st century, that wasn't the case. There was people used to look up to like introverts and quiet people. But then in the 21st century, after industrialization and all that,
it's just so interesting that we're socially conditioned to kind of think a certain way, and that's definitely, as you can just see from the bottom right, that the friends kind of influence that has on us, on what kind of ideal group should be, on how you should unwind with a group of friends at home. Yeah. It's everywhere, and thank you for bringing this up.
No, thanks for saying that. Cool.
I was about to say the same thing, but I think it's so interesting how like the media and external forces could shape your perception of life. That's why like that self-awareness is so important. So thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. And probably maybe it's unintentional. So it's not, the idea is not like that's how it is, and unconsciously we're picking these messages. All right. I'll share with you 2 myths. What do you think is the most common myth?
I'd say there's more extroverts than introverts.
I was leaning towards that.
That's a misconception too. Thank you for sharing that. So I have both. You mentioned one. So the one here, which I get all the time, and it's so common, introverts are shy. So I think that's the major misconception. People think introverts means shy. And they're different. We spoke about introversion. It's about the energy piece and where we get it and lose it. Shyness is about the fear of social disapproval and negative judgment and humiliation. So it's different. And there's nothing wrong with shyness. I'm not saying that shyness is a bad thing, but it's different than introversion. And there is shy extroverts and there's shy introverts. But it's different. So introvert doesn't mean you're a shy person. From the outside world, they might look the same. So in this example here from the book Quiet, you see on the left a shy extrovert, and the reason why they're quiet because they're afraid to speak. And then you see a calm introvert, overstimulated, and probably the energy level is low. They're not speaking as well. But from the outside, they look the same. So that also maybe helps with the misconception. Myth number 2, which you said, what's the percentage? People think introverts are the minority, and they're not. We are almost 50% of the population. There's some studies say 45, some studies say 47. So more or less around half the population. And it's interesting how people think we're the minority. And the reason maybe people think we're the minority because people don't talk about it. From my work, my focus groups and the clients I work with, they tell me in private that they're ashamed of being, not all of them, most of them, or half of them, say they're ashamed of being an introvert. And they think it's a weakness, especially at work. They tell me they act as extroverts all day. And imagine how hard that is when you're all day operating on, if we go back to the analogy with the right left hand, you're operating from a level that it's not authentic to you and it's not natural. So imagine by 5 o'clock you're like so depleted because you were not yourself. So that's part of the work I'm trying to do, just to maybe shed light that there's no shame. It's just a different personality type, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And if I could add something here, just because our audience is primarily in sales, like have no shame in being introvert, right? Because everyone sees like Wolf, like you showed it, right? Wolf of Wall Street, right? That's what everyone like thinks of a salesperson as, like, I'm going to call this person and close them and make millions of dollars, right? But to hear that 50-50, I actually know a lot of friends that have confided in me that they are also, ashamed to be introverts. And I think once you really like own it and understand it, then it's that energy, right, that you're talking about. So thanks for sharing this stat.
Yeah, it's the misunderstanding. I think that's what adds to it. And speaking of salespeople, which is the next section, and I know plenty of successful salespeople and SDR that are, and account executives that are crushing it, and they're introverts. There's different ways. I'm not saying extrovert don't. There's different ways of doing anything. There's different ways to leadership. There's different ways to doing sales. So if you embrace who you can do sales in your own way. All right, let's then go to the next piece. So now, probably, I'm assuming you understand the energy management, the myth, and all that. Then now it makes sense that sales has nothing to do with being an introvert and extrovert. We have the belief that, like you said, salespeople are extroverts and great talkers. But you know that well now, that sales is more about listening, especially these days, like the past, 40 years, sales shifted. It's not like the old school way of just talking and being aggressive. You need to listen and understand your prospects. So the idea, and like Andy, you mentioned, it's so ingrained in us, so we don't even question it. But they've done so many studies. There's a study that was published on Harvard Business Review, and I have the resource at the bottom. They did a study to see who are better group, introverts or extroverts, and there was zero evidence to support it. Like there's no correlation. But like you said, we have that impression. Especially people that are not in sales, think this is how sales is: aggressive, bold. You're trying to manipulate, and that's not the case. That's probably old school, and that's mainly the media or the stereotype. It's not what sales actually is. And there's plenty of other studies. I'll share with you here another one that was published on Washington Post. They did a study where 35 studies, and they interviewed 4,000 salespeople. And guess what was the conclusion? There was no correlation between successful salespeople being introvert or extrovert. The last study I have here was done by Adam Grant. I love Adam Grant. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's the author of these 3 books. Side note. But he did a study with a group of people to assess the same thing, and the results were the same. There's no difference between introverts and extroverts. In a separate study he did on introverts in leadership related, he said introverts can be better than extroverts for the following reasons. He said they're better listeners, they embrace solitude, they're wizards of preparation, and they exhibit calmness. So as you can see, these qualities can be an advantage to you as an introvert.
So interesting. Oh, yes, great book.
So if you read the book, Jim Collins referred to 5 levels of leadership, and level 5 is the highest. And I know it's leadership, but again, leadership can mean different things. It's not about ranks and titles. It doesn't mean a CEO is a leader. You could be an SDR and a leader. Leader is a person that self-aware of themselves, and they're self-leaders. Because how can you lead others if you don't lead yourself first? So, of course, leadership can mean many things, and there's different definitions. However, in this context, he was talking about leaders did well in the top 30 companies, that they always outperformed their competitors, had these qualities. They were quiet, they had empathy, they're humble, reserved, modest. And that doesn't mean extroverts don't have these qualities. Of course they do. But again, this comes so natural to introverts. And Simon Sinek, same thing. He talks a lot about leadership. And again, if you pay attention, same thing. He talks about empathy, being humble, all the other stuff. So that reconfirms that these are great qualities for leadership and for sales. So building on that, let's talk about what are the natural traits and strengths that you can use as an introvert to crush it in sales. And these are the reasons why introverts can be great salespeople. Number one, we're introspective. And actually, I love this quote by Beth Below. She's the author of the book, The Introvert Entrepreneur. She says, telling introverts to sacrifice reflection is like asking us to stop breathing. It's that drastic, honestly. I personally, if I don't take a time, like 1 hour a day of self-reflection, I don't do well. So it is crucial for us. And why is it important? Because it is a catalyst to innovation. When you are in solitude and introspecting, you can revisit your sales calls, your emails, how you approach things, and can come up with different ideas and learn from the mistakes. You become better at problem solving and decision making, and of course enhance the learning. You also, with introspection, you can increase understanding of yourself, which we established is crucial, and others, which means clients, prospects, etc. So that's why it's a great trait. So if you have it, embrace it, capitalize it.
I love that. Sorry, I'll just chime in real quick. I love that first part because, just analyzing data, I think is, well, not just data in general, but yourself, but also like deal strategy, or even like as an SDR, if you're like making a lot of cold calls, being prepared and setting up your cold call list is so important. But I would like to challenge a lot of the managers out there. Now, this could potentially be unpopular opinion, but there's a lot of managers out there that focus too much on metrics, right? And so they're almost in the sense where it's like everyone's the same, right? But what I've seen with some of the great managers is that they understand that they have different types of people on their team. So this would probably just be a challenge a little bit to the managers out there to just really understand and how your team functions and works. Because like I said, if not, it leads to burnout, and that's not what we want.
Exactly. And I don't want to go into it because that's not the session about, and I know we're still in here, but I have like a different talk just about that, how managers can understand different teams, and it makes a huge difference with the metric and everything. So thank you for bringing this up. All right, great listeners. It sounds simple, but crucial again. And I'm sure you know that. Regardless, introvert or extrovert, listening is important. It increases understanding of the situation. You understand your clients, their needs, their wants, their desires. It deepens the empathy. People can tell, and potential clients can tell when someone is empathetic and really listening and not just waiting for the other person to finish talking so they jump in. It builds engagement, allows the other person to open up. Introverts, usually they get that, and I don't know if you get that too. People tell you, oh my God, I can't believe I shared so much with you. There's something about you that opens me up. So that's because of the active listening. So actually, I read many case studies about sales, and correct me if I'm wrong. Listening is like one of the top skills salespeople need to have.
100%. 100%. I mean, if you're not listening to, I've seen deals in general just go south because either if you're AE or SDR, you're just so focused on your end goal, you're not focused on the customer's end goal. And so, I can't remember. I'm reading a book. It's called Turn the Ship Around. It's about delegating and leadership, but essentially that's what he was saying is that you can't, if you don't listen, like in this sense, it was a submarine. If he wasn't listening to his crew, then they would go haywire and, they would continue to be last in the pack. But now since he actually listened, and it just started off by saying, like, how can I help you? Like, why did we come to this conversation? Right. And so that's how I always like to start off my conversations. Like, hey, like, how can I best suit you today? Right. So yes, you're absolutely right about that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I love the submarine.
I was going to say, a lot of times before I was reflecting the fact that a lot in my previous experiences, I've just been listening to respond instead of listening to understand. So I know we can probably have a full episode on just tips on how you can do that. But if you could quickly share on how someone could really listen to understand rather than just respond, that would be great.
Yeah, great question. Like you said, that's by itself a deep topic. I think it's literally when you change your intention, listen to understand. Many people intention they're listening to reply back. Maybe because it's they're not conscious about it and it comes naturally. And maybe you're too excited, you want to share your information. So the person is talking, and let's say they say something in your head, you start preparing for the answer. Say, "Oh, that's good. I want to say that." Then you disconnect from listening because now you're thinking of your response. So I would say try to, maybe it's hard in the beginning and it's a practice to, when you see that, catch yourself and stop thinking of your response and really focus with the person and deeply and see and try to see the subtleties. But also with great listening, it's not just the hearing and the listening, it's paying attention to subtleties, the body language, all the other stuff. So focusing with the person, removing the distraction, and yeah, just go deep and empathize. And with empathy means you're putting yourself in their shoes. So that helps also when you put yourself in someone else's shoes. And it's a practice. You can read about it, you can learn about it, but it starts with that. It starts with self-awareness.
Yeah, that's very true. So Andy, this is something that I do just in general, but like say cold call, right? Let's take a cold call. That's the best example for SDR. So someone's like, oh my God, like, hey, stop calling me, like, or I'm busy. You could do like two things. You could like mirror them, what Chris Voss talks about in Never Split the Difference, right? You just say, hey, you're busy. But then also you could be like, hey, like, I totally understand it's a tough time. When would be the best time to reach out? But that's confidence, right? As an SDR, you should be confident in your outbound strategy, because what I've seen is that when people so what I was getting to is like, if they're not ready at this moment, that's okay. Just make sure like you're going to continue, like you'll have the confidence later on that they'll come back. And I've seen that happen many times where people end up coming back because I share value with every outreach. But that starts off with listening. I know a lot of SDRs, they automatically hear no and they're like, oh my gosh, like, right. But I'm just like, okay, like it's not, no worries. Like it's not the right time, because I picture myself in their shoes, and, I wouldn't want someone to be all crazy on me as well. So anyways, that's a little side note.
No, that's not a side note. That's exactly it. Thank you, 100%. And lucky we spoke about that when you were at the SB Academy, and about no, it's just an opportunity to even go further, and it's an opportunity actually. So yeah, definitely. And with great listening comes the mirroring, like you said, because also great listening, and that's something I didn't want to mention here to brag a lot about introverts, but usually we're also good at mirroring the tone. So when you listen, you automatically start adapting to the tone of voice of the other person. So yeah, that's a side. Anyway, so yeah, thank you. Great listening, as you can see, important. And introverts, it's a default setting, it's natural. Then please embrace it, capitalize on it, and have the confidence. Actually, the more you learn about yourself, the more confident you become. So the more you learn about your introvert qualities or even superpowers, the more confident you become. These are just examples of many books. Of course, they talk about how active listening is the number one key behavior of high performance teams. So it is that important. All right, number 3, and it comes hand in hand with the listening. We're great at asking questions because we're less talking, more listening. So naturally comes you want to ask questions, and we're curious to learn from the other person. So the questions, of course, open up and helps to identify what's the need of the prospects, which is self-explanatory. And introverts, they tend to dig deeper into the customer's business and the client's potential clients, and they aim. I'm not saying they aim intention, maybe intention, but they go so deep, like to understand not just the customer and the customer's customer. So with questions, you really dig deep into understanding. Number 4, believe it or not, it sounds ironic, but we are great at relationship building. And that's a reference from the Introvert Advantage book. So why we're good at, so there's different types of relationship building. So probably extroverts, they're great at introductions, or maybe they're great when they go to a networking event, they go in, they speak many people, so maybe quantity over quality. Introverts, they thrive in one-on-one discussions or one-on-one meetings or calls, and of course with with cold calls and as an SDR and account executive, you're doing that. You're speaking to one person, and that's where we thrive, and we build relationships because of that. So capitalize on that because of with the listening, with the empathy and all that. Of course, it's gonna end up building a great relationship. And another point with introverts, it's more likely to build a longer term relationship. So it's not the short, what do you call it? Oh, yeah, it's the longer term, not the short term as well.
So I have a question here. So a lot of times I see this pretty often. They say selling is a team sport, right? And it is 100%. You have to know the strengths and weaknesses and put people in at the right time in a deal cycle. But I've also seen like SDR. So if you're an SDR, right, they're afraid to get on the call, right? Get on the cold call, where I feel like extroverts will just like call. And so, how do you like, and I'm just curious, like, what would your advice be to any of the SDRs that are listening that might be introverted, they know it, but their manager doesn't know it? And they're afraid to talk to their manager about it because, they're introverts. So like, how would you, like, if you could lend any advice, I would love that.
So for communicate that to the manager, it requires, I guess, courage maybe to have this conversation. And maybe when you have the tools or understanding. So now let's say someone on this, listening to this, now you have an idea. Now it's about energy management, it's not about shyness, it has so many strengths, etc. So you have this information. Now you can go to your manager, say, by the way, like, I don't know if you know, I'm an introvert, and do you know what an introvert is? And yeah, you have that discussion. It's not about shyness, it's not about being antisocial, it's about energy management, etc. And then you can have that open conversation and embrace who you are. And since you have the knowledge. But I know some people may be not comfortable doing it, but if you're comfortable, I feel that's the ideal scenario.
Okay.
The second one, if you don't want to have that conversation, then you can do it behind the scenes. You just take care of yourself. You don't have, you can do it in a way that not everyone needs to know. So let's say the micro or mini breaks here and there, you do it. Like end of the day, in sales, because it's all about numbers and revenue, but it doesn't matter how you get the sale, right? So you can do it your own way, do it your introvert style. Like they don't care as long as you're getting it, right? So use your own style and get the results. And regarding the phone calls, I get it. I feel the same way. So preparation helps me. Preparation, as not Anthony, what's his name? Adam Grant mentioned, introverts are wizards at preparation. The more you prepare, the more confident you become. For most introverts. So prepare. That's one. Two, since it's about energy, before a call, have high energy. So take care of yourself before. Do the solitude, do whatever you feel you need to do, meditate, etc. And then when you're at your top peak of energy, you'll do well because you have that energy.
Love it.
I love that.
Preparation, Andy.
Yeah. So speaking of preparation, have your. I mean, I'm sure you know that. Have your openers ready, and that also shows the prospect that you really know who you're talking to, and of course that comes with research. So that's again preparation, the research, the openers, and then practice, which we just mentioned. And especially for introverts, practice is important. Maybe for extroverts not, but for introverts, because if when we practice, then we know exactly what we're going to say, which help us to be more natural instead of thinking, and we're getting like stuck in our head. So it helps us to practice.
And a side note here, as far as preparation, when I started as an SDR, I had no confidence getting on the phones. But what I ended up doing is I created this, and I'll share the photo as I edit this out. But I created this cold calling matrix where it's basically based off of what people have said to me over probably 100 calls. I could map out oh, if they say this, I say this. If they say that, I say this. And I started to memorize that. And then I became really good on the phones, but I was just confident in myself because I knew the way the direction went. So I think like preparation number 5, like, man, you hit that nail on the head.
Love it. And I love what you did. Oh my God, that's brilliant.
And since we're on the call, because we're kind of on the topic of preparation as well as cold calling, and how do you find that energy or motivation to do it? One thing that I found, just from my perspective, is kind of building your momentum to do it, to either get to that energy level or through meditation, etc. But for me, as an all-bound SDR who focuses on inbound as well as outbound, I usually take all my inbound calls, either contact us, request forms, etc., before I do my outbound calls, just to warm myself up, because inbound calls are much easier when you open up a prospect to say, hey, you reached out, and then after you build that energy, it's much easier for me to go ahead and outbound and pick up the phone, continue, and crush.
Wow. That's a fantastic tip. Thank you. Yeah, definitely. The momentum really helps.
The momentum.
Brilliant strategies, guys. Thanks for sharing. And I think this is the last one, sense of calm and composure. That's a great strength. Put the potential customer at ease. We remain calm, especially in chaos. And you know how the sales environment is fast-paced, maybe chaotic, maybe noisy. So as an introvert, when you're calm, it helps diffuse the tension, also create peacefulness, calm around your team, especially if you spoke about team. It's a teamwork. So that's a great thing, and helps others slow down. And the composure puts you at a competitive advantage, because you're even if you're from the inside you're not calm, but at least from the outside you seem calm, composed. You know what you're saying, you know what you're doing. But sometimes that gets mistaken by shyness, and that person doesn't want to talk. But on the contrary, it doesn't. All right. So conclusion to all this. Develop your own authentic style and leverage your natural strength. Because as you saw, these only 6 strengths. There's more, but I didn't want to even share them because then I'm bragging. But even if you stick to these 6 and that they come so natural to you, that's awesome. That's why introverts can be great salespeople. And like I mentioned before, sales is a result-driven profession, which means it doesn't matter how you get the result. It's how you got there. So it's all about the results. So do it your style, create your own. And how do you create your own is by first self-awareness, understanding yourself more, understanding your personality type, taking care of your energy, and embracing who you are. If you stop, because I know like many people consume energy during the day trying to be extroverts. Imagine if they instead of putting that energy on something doesn't matter, they're putting all that energy on the actual work. And I've read a statistic somewhere that trying to be at work when you're not fully yourself, you're 40% less productive than other people. So when you are yourself, you do much better. I know it sounds cliche, but really, be yourself. All right. Share with you a few resources. These are great books if you're interested in this topic. I'll leave it for you, and you can have it in the notes. If you're not sure where you fall on the spectrum of the introvert extrovert, there's different assessment tools out there. The most famous is Myers-Briggs. However, if you want to do one that's good enough and free, you can do the 16personalities.com. Another resource, Quiet Revolution, is a great site with blog post. This is by the blog portal is by Susan Cain. She's the author of the book Quiet. And of course, you can visit my website and reach out to me. My website is here, and I'm available on all social media platforms, and I'm happy to connect there.
I just want to say thank you for just gracing us with your presence. But on top of that, I didn't think this episode was for introverts or extroverts. It was an episode about people. And as salespeople, as people who all care, it's an honor to just learn more and be able to share value so that you can connect and be a better person.
You're welcome, and thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy that you invited me to this amazing podcast. I'm a big fan. I've been watching all the episodes, so thank you.
Yes, let's go. Awesome. Well, that's a call to action because this scales not only from SDRs, but Andy was saying for everybody in general, workplace. So I encourage everyone, if you felt something of value, right, something really touched you, reach out to Faris, connect with him on LinkedIn. I would say that's a good way. Or you said Instagram, right, or Facebook.
Anyway.
Connect with Faris, but specifically say like what resonated, because that is so important in today's world. And yeah, I can't wait to get you back on the show. We're gonna have to get you back.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it, and I'm launching my podcast next week, and at some point I'd love to invite you as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we'd be honored to come on the show and share some insights. But appreciate you, Faris.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the SDR Live podcast. If you like this episode, please share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you tune in next week and have a fantastic week.